Hey, folks, welcome to another exciting episode of the Chad Prather Show. We're going to get right into it. The left exploded on Sunday after President Trump attended the Daytona 500 and used the infamous armored limousine nicknamed the Beast to conduct the ceremonial first lap on the track. The New York Post blasted the president for the misuse of taxpayer dollars. Did taxpayers just pay for Air Force One to do a flyover and deposit Trump to be driven in his limousine and all the Secret Service this stunt must have entailed? Well, I don't know. Do we dare bring up the numerous overseas trips that taxpayers were forced to pay while the Obama family toured Europe? Imagine that. Leftists finally showing interest in your taxpayer dollars after they've spent years, decades even, throwing your money down the drain. And since when did the leftist elite begin caring about anything that happens at a NASCAR race? That's right, as soon as the president got involved. They blasted the stunt as an early campaign move to try to swing Florida voters. And so what? Is it a surprise that Trump is planning a re-election campaign? I mean, duh. And he's going to win the thing, especially after reactions like this from the left. Now, some link the president's appearance at the annual race to that of course, Hitler and his lap around the track at the 1936 Berlin Summer Olympics. I mean, would you people please give me a break at this point? Comparing Trump to a dictator is quite a stretch. But that's exactly what the left wants. They want those images to become synonymous with the way the country views Trump, MAGA, the working class, Republicans at large, yes, you. The more of a connection they can draw between these two images, the more uproar they can cause in November. Now, Twitter users were quick to drag fans of the Daytona 500 by saying that the president was merely targeting his core demographic, or as they put it, a group of obese, toothless, heavily tattooed, drunken fans and their husbands. Now, the left is accepting of all the people, right? All the people, very tolerant. They preach love and acceptance, but only if you do the right song and dance. News outlets, verified Twitter accounts, and keyboard warriors alike call Trump's Daytona 500 appearance a perfect example of a propaganda used by a classic dictatorship, but that's far from the truth. Let's be honest, this is not a true dictatorship. Come on, people. This is not true authoritarianism, and it's far from it. You see, we as Americans, listen to me, we don't know real struggle, and that's the truth. Our generation and the generations following us are the most pampered, self-serving, selfish group of individuals we have. Listen, we haven't suffered, folks, not the way our grandparents or the generation before them did. We didn't live through the Great Depression, drought, famine. We weren't drafted. We have no reference for standing in a bread line or using segregated bathrooms. We are a lush society, spoiled even. That's our reality. And while we sit in the land of the free crying out for gluten-free, cage-free, vegan, non-GMO, locally sourced, ethically cared for, and soy-based, organically raised foods, others around the world are facing the realities of real hunger and starvation. The rights we are, quote, fighting for, well, they're first world luxuries compared to other places that are still fighting for the right to live without overarching authoritarian rule. Nations where speaking freely against those in elected office is still punishable by jail time or even death. Now, I want you to think about that for a second. One word that could be perceived as critical or harsh, and you're done. While American women protest attacks on tampons, women in Iran fight to even show their faces. While Bernie supporters are crying over his support of the dairy industry, most notably during one of his recent rallies, and all the while...
Bernie, I'm your biggest supporter, and I'm here to ask you to stop propping up the dairy industry and to stop propping up animal agriculture.
And all the while, 800,000 Syrians are displaced in their homeland, living in overcrowded camps, fighting for food, while others fight to have LGBTQ plus representation in movies and free use of bathrooms. Some fight just to be seen as human. Some struggle to survive in countries that are hell-bent on eradicating those who identify as anything but straight. We as Americans know nothing of true struggle. We are pampered. We are spoiled. Do you want to know a true dictatorship? Well, I want you to look no further than Vladimir Putin, where school children are encouraged and guided to refer to the president as Uncle Vova. They worship him like an idol, a living deity, not out of choice, but obligation. He's turned the entire country into his fan base, but not by free will. He's a man who served 2 presidential terms, one spanning from 2000 to 2008 and the current beginning in 2012 and projected to last until 2024. So the people of Russia are careful to express their disdain for him, and yet in each election he wins by a landslide. Now that's collusion if I've ever seen it. Bombastic displays of propaganda riddle national television. In 2011, a deep-sea expedition involving Putin was broadcast on national TV. He sank 20 feet down into the water and immediately discovered buried treasure neatly placed at the seafloor. A national hero paraded across the TV. The Renaissance man. He can do anything. Last May, Putin participated in a showcase of one of his favorite pastimes, hockey. He dominated the rink unsurprisingly and single-handedly scored 8 out of 10 winning goals. What a Renaissance man. He can do anything. Can you imagine being on that team? I wouldn't even want to touch the puck, and God forbid anybody checks him into the glass. He lives for applause, praise, admiration, and glory, and he wants to be coveted, and he will do whatever it takes to get it. This is a country in which those who speak up and speak out against Putin and the regime are forced into modern-day gulags and work camps. Or worse, some are even met with a bullet.
What appears to be a vicious political assassination. A popular outspoken critic of the Russian President Vladimir Putin shot in the back, right out in the open, just blocks from the Kremlin.
Now let's take Boris Nemtsov as a prime example. A journalist, unafraid of speaking the truth when it came to Vladimir Putin. He paid the ultimate price for his free speech in 2015 when he was mysteriously assassinated while out for a jog in Red Square. Months before his death, this is what he had to say about the supreme leader.
Do you worry about what's going to happen to you?
Everybody who are against him must be very careful. I think that we must replace him because he did everything against an interest of my country.
Hey, America, that's what a dictatorship looks like. Now, you may be thinking, Boris was assassinated all the way back in 2015. Surely this doesn't happen now. Wrong! Just over a week ago, prominent Putin critic and Chechen blogger Imran Aliyev was found dead in his hotel room. No, not just dead. This man was found with his throat slit and dozens of stab wounds in a crime scene that local French police could only describe as a product of extreme savagery. Aliyev was a native of Chechen Republic and another great example of true dictatorship and abuse at the hands of elected officials. The president of the Chechen Republic, Ramzan Kadyrov, is quite the charmer in his own right. His biggest enactment while in office has been to purge the Chechen Republic of gay men, many of whom have been kidnapped, beaten, and tortured by groups hired on behalf of the Chechen government to, quote, purify the land.
I was taken and held for 3 days. They brought me back home in a sack and threw me into the yard and said, "Here's your son, he's gay."
I wanted to ask you about the alleged roundup, abduction, and torture of gay men in the Republic.
Это ерунда. У нас таких людей нету. Нету у нас геев. Если есть, заберите в Канаду, хвала Аллаху, подальше от нас, чтобы очистили кровь там, если есть таких, пусть забирают там.
Folks, that's brutality. That's hardship. That's a dictator. So you want to sit up and talk about Trump, the dictator? How about you live a suppressed and oppressed life under the Trump regime, right? You know, being denied basic human rights like free college, free maxi pads, free gender reassignment surgeries, while others across the world dream of a basic level of freedom and human dignity we take for granted every single day. Feel free to complain. Continue to type out your frustrations to the world about the oppressive society you live in. Express your disdain for this unfair president because you live in this country. You got the freedom to do that. I'm sure you'll find someone to sympathize with you, but it won't be me. So here's a tip for those of you on the left. Check your privilege.